It was early September in the small but bustling city of Alexandria, Virginia. The air buzzed with anticipation, and the hallways of Westbrook High School were once again filled with the excited chatter of students reunited after a long summer break. The morning sun slanted through tall windows, illuminating colorful posters plastered along the brick walls. Posters announcing clubs, sports tryouts, and upcoming elections for student council positions. Amid the lively chaos was 17-year-old Elijah Brooks. Tall and slender with an easy smile and thoughtful dark eyes, Elijah moved gracefully through the crowded hallway, greeting classmates warmly. Everyone knew Elijah. Known for his academic prowess, quick wit, and charismatic leadership, he had always been a natural center of attention. Yet, it was never a role he actively sought. Elijah preferred quieter, meaningful interactions over flamboyant popularity. His close friends, Julia and Marcus, flanked him. Julia Matthews was fierce and opinionated, an ardent advocate for student rights and social justice. Marcus Harper, Elijah's childhood friend, was known for his humor and sincerity, always easing tension with a joke or a thoughtful word. "So, today's the day you officially announce your run for president, right?" Julia asked, her green eyes sparkling with enthusiasm as they walked toward their lockers. Elijah nodded, a touch of nervous excitement creeping into his expression. "Yeah, it's time. I think I'm ready." Marcus nudged him gently, grinning widely. "About time, man. Seriously, if anyone can change things here, it's you." Despite the confident exterior he portrayed, Elijah felt a surge of apprehension. Deep inside, he knew the stakes were higher for him. Being one of the few black students at Westbrook, he had long sensed the subtle, unspoken barriers that lingered beneath the surface. Yet he chose optimism, believing wholeheartedly in the fairness and decency of his peers. The trio reached their lockers as they noticed Principal Harmon, a man in his early 50s with a stern reputation, walking purposefully toward them. The principal's arrival often caused unease among students, and today was no different. His sharp gaze was locked on Elijah. "Elijah, could we have a quick word in my office, please?" he said briskly, barely acknowledging Marcus and Julia. Julia frowned slightly. "Everything okay, Mr. Harmon?" "Everything is fine," he responded curtly. "Just administrative details." Elijah glanced reassuringly at his friends, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "I'll catch up with you guys later." Inside Mr. Harmon's office, the walls were bare except for a few framed awards and a dull landscape painting. Elijah had been here only once before, years ago, to receive a commendation for an academic competition. The memory brought no comfort. Mr. Harmon sat down behind his large mahogany desk and steepled his fingers. "Elijah, I've heard you're considering running for student council president." "Yes, sir," Elijah replied calmly, carefully maintaining eye contact. The principal sighed heavily, as though the news were burdensome. "Listen, Elijah, you're a brilliant student, and we appreciate your enthusiasm. But perhaps student council president isn't the best role for you." Elijah frowned, startled by the comment. "Why do you say that, sir?" The older man adjusted his glasses, clearly uncomfortable. "Certain members of our community feel that maybe you aren't exactly the representative they envision for our school's image." A cold realization dawned on Elijah, but he chose his next words carefully. "What do you mean by certain members? Is there a specific reason why my image might not fit?" Mr. Harmon cleared his throat awkwardly. "I'm sure you understand. Westbrook has traditions, certain expectations about who takes leadership roles here. It might be easier for everyone if you chose another position, perhaps vice president or treasurer." Elijah felt the heat rise in his chest, but he remained poised. "With all due respect, Mr. Harmon, if it's my qualifications or my behavior that concerns you, I'd appreciate specific feedback. But if you're implying that it's because of my race—" "I'm not saying anything explicitly," Harmon interjected sharply. "I'm suggesting you reconsider for the sake of harmony." Elijah stood up slowly, gathering his composure. "I respect your opinion, sir, but I won't reconsider. I believe I have the right to run fairly, and if the students don't want me, they'll let me know." As he left the office, Elijah's thoughts spun. He was angry, disappointed, and yet strangely determined. He had always believed racism existed quietly, subtly, but never expected it so brazenly here. The encounter, however, had ignited something deeper within him, a powerful resolve to confront this injustice directly. Elijah recounted the incident to Julia and Marcus immediately afterward. Julia was livid, pacing the hallway furiously. "This is blatant racism, Elijah. They can't do this. We have to do something." Marcus, usually humorous and relaxed, now appeared deeply troubled. He's right, Eli. But how do we fight something like this? Elijah took a breath, his voice steady and decisive. We win the election. Fairly, openly, and undeniably. If the administration won't uphold justice, the students will. That afternoon, Elijah officially declared his candidacy with a speech that resonated deeply. He spoke passionately about inclusivity, representation, and the values he believed Westbrook stood for. By evening, the school's social media was ablaze with discussions. Elijah's bravery had become contagious, spreading like wildfire among students who had long felt voiceless. Yet, lurking beneath the excitement was an undercurrent of unease. Not everyone at Westbrook was pleased with Elijah's candidacy. Whispers spread through certain circles, echoes of Principal Harmon's implied threats disguised as concern. Rumors soon followed, sly and vicious, quietly undermining Elijah's character and intentions. As Elijah lay awake in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, he knew he had opened a door he could never close again. Tomorrow he would face challenges unlike any he'd known. But he was ready, armed with the simple, powerful belief that justice could and would prevail, if only they had the courage to demand it. Little did Elijah know, however, just how fierce the fight was about to become, or how dramatically his life, and those around him, would be forever altered. The morning after Elijah's candidacy announcement, Westbrook High buzzed with a nervous energy that rippled through the hallways and classrooms. Overnight, social media had exploded with mixed reactions. Messages of support intertwined with whispered doubts, uneasy speculations, and subtle hostility. Elijah walked through the main entrance, feeling every glance, every curious stare directed his way. Yet he held his head high, refusing to let the creeping tension dim his resolve. Near the school's central courtyard, Julia Matthews, already waiting impatiently, waved Elijah over. Julia was visibly frustrated, her auburn hair tied back fiercely, matching her equally fiery expression. "Did you see what's being posted online, Eli?" Elijah nodded grimly. "Yeah, I've seen enough." Julia pulled out her phone, scrolling angrily through comments. "Look at these. Half the school is backing you strongly, but there's another group that started spreading lies. People are saying ridiculous things like you cheated on exams or that you're only running because of a political agenda." Marcus Harper jogged over, clearly irritated as well. His usually humorous demeanor was absent, replaced by seriousness Elijah rarely saw in his friend. "I confronted a group of juniors earlier. They were talking trash, repeating garbage someone probably fed them. Seems like someone influential might be behind all this." Elijah sighed. "We knew this could happen. Principal Harmon practically warned me." Julia's eyes blazed with determination. "Which means we fight back harder. We need to strategize, start a campaign to directly combat the misinformation." Just then, footsteps approached from behind. Turning around, Elijah was surprised to see Emma Russell, a popular senior known for her outgoing personality and extensive social connections. Emma, blonde and poised, smiled gently but appeared slightly nervous. "Hey, Elijah, mind if I talk to you for a second?" Julia shot Elijah a wary look, but Elijah gestured reassuringly. "Sure, Emma. What's up?" Emma lowered her voice, her expression earnest yet uncertain. "Look, I want you to know I'm on your side, okay? But you should be careful. Some people have been saying things, really unfair things, and it seems to be coordinated. I overheard Coach Peters telling some parents yesterday after soccer practice that your candidacy could divide the community." He sounded exactly like Mr. Harmon. Elijah's heart sank slightly, realizing how deep and widespread the opposition might run. "Thanks for letting me know, Emma. I appreciate your honesty." Emma hesitated. "If you need anything, really anything, I'm here. I can help reach people you might not normally get through to." After she left, Marcus shook his head in disbelief. "Coach Peters? Seriously? I thought he was cool." Julia crossed her arms defiantly. "This is bigger than we thought. If they're coordinating like this, we're going to need more allies." Elijah knew she was right. They had underestimated the backlash, thinking perhaps naively that the community had moved beyond such issues. It was now painfully clear that old prejudices lingered deeply beneath the surface of their community, hidden under polite smiles and whispered conversations. As the school day progressed, Elijah remained focused but increasingly wary. His every action felt observed, scrutinized. Classes felt tense, and conversations hushed as he passed. He tried to appear unaffected, but inside the pressure was growing. In fifth period history, Mr. Rodriguez, a teacher Elijah greatly respected, started a discussion about historical movements for civil rights and representation. Elijah listened intently, feeling an unexpected solidarity from Mr. Rodriguez's pointed lesson. After class, the teacher pulled Elijah aside discreetly. "Elijah, keep going," Mr. Rodriguez said firmly, his voice full of quiet conviction. "I can't publicly take sides, but I want you to know many faculty members are quietly rooting for you." The support from Mr. Rodriguez was encouraging, yet Elijah felt a bitter irony. He wondered how many people silently supported him but felt unable to speak openly for fear of repercussions. Later, as Elijah gathered his books at his locker, he overheard a conversation drifting from around the corner. Recognizing the voices instantly, he paused cautiously, ears alert. "Honestly, it's just weird," said the voice of Chloe Evans, captain of the cheerleading squad, whose influence extended widely across the student body. I like Elijah, he's nice and everything. But president? Does he even understand what the school wants? Another voice, unmistakably Nate Palmer, a star football player with an authoritative tone, responded dismissively. "Elijah's smart, but this isn't about grades. Leadership means representing all of us. Elijah just isn't what Westbrook stands for." Elijah's grip tightened around his textbooks. Chloe, Nate, students he'd helped numerous times in academic groups, were openly doubting him. Their comments hurt more deeply than he'd anticipated. Quietly, he slipped away, their words echoing painfully. By the time school ended, Elijah felt mentally exhausted. Yet outside, he saw an unexpected gathering. A sizable crowd had formed near the parking lot. Students from various groups clustered together, holding handmade signs. "We stand with Elijah. Justice and equality at Westbrook. And vote for change." Julia stood proudly in front of them, megaphone in hand, her voice passionate and unwavering. "We are here because Elijah Brooks deserves to be president. Not just because of his race or despite it, but because he represents our generation's desire for fairness and real equality." The cheers that followed were deafening. Elijah felt warmth in his chest, overwhelmed by gratitude. Marcus placed a supportive hand on his shoulder. "This is what real support looks like, Eli. No whisper campaigns can defeat this." Elijah took the megaphone Julia offered, his hand shaking slightly. Taking a deep breath, he addressed his peers, speaking from his heart, his voice steady but emotional. "Thank you. Your support means more than I can express. I didn't start this fight to divide us. I did it because I believe in us. We all deserve to be heard, to be represented fairly and equally. We can't allow outdated prejudices to determine who we can be." His words resonated, sparking more applause and cheering. Yet even in this moment of unity, Elijah knew the battle was far from over. The whispers in the hallways, the quiet hostility from influential community members, they were still out there, ready to strike back even harder. That evening, at home, Elijah sat silently, the glow of his laptop illuminating his face. Messages of encouragement flooded his inbox alongside hurtful comments and threats. The contrast was stark, emotionally exhausting yet strangely empowering. A gentle knock at his bedroom door interrupted his thoughts. His mother, Catherine Brooks, stood in the doorway, her expression gentle yet worried. "Elijah, honey, we need to talk." He nodded slowly, sensing her apprehension. "I'm listening, Mom." Catherine sighed softly, sitting next to him. "I got a call from Mrs. Barnes, our neighbor. She told me people have started complaining to the school board about your candidacy. They're claiming you're creating division." Elijah exhaled, frustration evident in his voice. "I'm just running for president, Mom. Why does it threaten them so much?" She smiled sadly, placing her hand comfortingly on his shoulder. "Because you're challenging something they're afraid to acknowledge. This isn't just about you anymore. It's bigger. But no matter what, your dad and I are right here with you." As his mother left, Elijah felt a mix of anxiety and resolve growing within him. He knew now this wasn't simply a student council election. It had become a defining moment, both personally and for Westbrook itself. In the quiet of his room, Elijah made a promise to himself. He would fight with dignity, integrity, and courage. Whatever came next, he was ready. The days following Elijah's emotional speech to his peers brought an intensified atmosphere of both unity and division within Westbrook High. The student body had clearly split into visible factions, one fiercely loyal and inspired by Elijah's courage, the other quietly hostile, influenced by hidden voices who felt threatened by change. Monday morning began tensely. Elijah felt every stare as he moved through the halls, accompanied closely by Marcus and Julia. The walls were still decorated with posters bearing his name and slogans about unity, but overnight, some had been torn down or defaced. Words scribbled hastily across them sent clear, albeit anonymous, messages. "Stop dividing us, and know your place." Julia was outraged, tearing down the defaced posters aggressively. "Cowards!" she muttered angrily, balling them up and tossing them away. "They won't even face us openly." Marcus shook his head, his humor momentarily sidelined by genuine frustration. "We knew they'd fight dirty. The question is, how far will they go?" Elijah glanced down the hallway and noticed Principal Harmon watching him silently, his eyes unreadable behind thick glasses. Their gazes locked for a fleeting moment, and Elijah saw a flicker of something. Unease, perhaps regret, before the older man turned and vanished into the office. Elijah wondered briefly if Harmon himself had anticipated just how contentious things would become. Throughout the morning, Elijah attended classes quietly, attempting to remain focused. Yet everywhere, signs of division lingered. Side-eyed glances from classmates who once greeted him warmly, whispered comments deliberately loud enough for him to overhear, and anonymous notes slipped into his locker, suggesting vaguely threatening things. Each incident weighed on him, yet Elijah chose not to react publicly, determined not to let anger dictate his actions. At lunchtime, the cafeteria atmosphere mirrored the divided campus. Elijah sat at his usual table, joined not only by Julia and Marcus, but by others who were now openly supporting him. The group included Emma Russell, whose influential presence sent ripples through the lunchroom, clearly signaling where she stood. "I still can't believe Chloe and Nate," Emma said, frustration evident in her voice as she glanced toward their table. Chloe Evans and Nate Palmer sat among their usual crowd, deliberately avoiding Elijah's table. "They're acting like they hardly know you now. It's ridiculous." Julia's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "They're afraid of losing their status. Supporting Elijah openly means risking popularity for principals. Sadly, not everyone's brave enough." Marcus nodded, leaning forward seriously. "What worries me is the adults fueling all this. Kids don't start acting this way on their own." Elijah met Marcus's gaze thoughtfully. "You're right. We can't ignore it anymore. Someone influential is clearly orchestrating this behind the scenes." A sudden commotion near the cafeteria entrance interrupted their discussion. A group of students, led by senior Jared Collins, had entered loudly, wearing matching red shirts emblazoned with the slogan, "Westbrook United, Preserve Tradition." Jared, a charismatic but divisive figure, strode confidently to the center of the lunchroom, drawing immediate attention. "Listen up, everyone," Jared announced loudly, his voice echoing sharply. "This election isn't just about who gets to be president. It's about protecting our traditions, our unity. We can't let outside agendas divide us. We deserve leadership that represents everyone, not just a special interest group." His thinly veiled rhetoric resonated among some, while others exchanged uncomfortable glances. Julia stood abruptly, furious. "What exactly do you mean by outside agendas, Jared? You're dangerously close to crossing a line." Jared shrugged dismissively. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. This election's become a circus. Westbrook deserves better." Tensions thickened palpably in the cafeteria. Teachers, sensing trouble, moved quickly to disperse the groups, but the damage was done. Jared had publicly drawn battle lines, effectively forcing students to openly choose sides. After lunch, Elijah walked silently toward his English class, his heart heavy with the growing tension. Before reaching the classroom, he felt a tap on his shoulder. Turning sharply, he found Chloe Evans standing nervously behind him, shifting uncomfortably from foot to foot. "What do you want, Chloe?" Elijah asked quietly, guarded but curious. Chloe hesitated, clearly conflicted. "Look, Elijah, I'm sorry about what's happening. Honestly, I never meant for it to go this far. Jared's gone way overboard." He studied her closely, recognizing genuine distress in her eyes. "If you're really sorry, then stand up against him. Silence only helps him." She sighed deeply. "It's not that simple. If I openly support you, I lose everything. Friends, my status, even opportunities for college recommendations." Elijah shook his head sadly. "It's your choice, Chloe. Just know that staying silent is choosing a side too." He turned away, leaving her visibly shaken. Her words, though frustrating, underscored the enormous pressure students faced from hidden adult agendas. The rest of the afternoon dragged slowly. By the final bell, Elijah felt emotionally drained, eager for the quiet sanctuary of home. However, his escape was short-lived. Upon arriving home, he found a visitor waiting with his mother, Councilwoman Angela Foster, a prominent local politician known for advocating community unity. "Elijah," Angela greeted warmly, extending her hand. I've heard quite a lot about you lately. Good or bad? Elijah asked wryly, accepting her handshake. Angela laughed lightly. Both, but mostly good. Your courage impresses many people, myself included. His mother glanced at him cautiously. Angela stopped by to discuss the situation at school. She has concerns. Elijah nodded. You're worried about division too? Angela sat gracefully on the couch, carefully choosing her words. I'm worried about you. Your campaign has become symbolic, Elijah. Many community leaders see you as disruptive. You're threatening their carefully constructed image of harmony. Elijah leaned forward earnestly. If their harmony depends on suppressing voices like mine, it's not harmony. It's silence. Angela smiled softly, clearly impressed by his maturity. I agree, but be aware, Elijah. This goes beyond high school politics. Powerful people have taken notice. This campaign could affect your future, your family's life. Are you sure you're ready for that? His mother visibly tensed. Angela, are you suggesting Elijah back down? No, Angela replied firmly. I'm suggesting he understands what he's really up against. If you continue, Elijah, you won't just be challenging the status quo at school. You're challenging the entire community structure. Elijah absorbed her words silently, feeling their gravity. I never wanted this fight, but I can't back down now. Too many people depend on seeing someone like me succeed. I'll deal with whatever comes. Angela rose slowly, admiration clear in her eyes. Then you're stronger than most adults I know. Just be careful. You're already changing things, Elijah. But change never comes easily. That night, sleep eluded Elijah. Angela's warning echoed repeatedly in his mind, highlighting the reality of his situation. His candidacy was no longer a simple student election. It had become symbolic, a battle for the soul of Westbrook itself. Around midnight, his phone vibrated suddenly, jolting him from his thoughts. Elijah opened it quickly, seeing a new anonymous message. You won't win. Step down now before it's too late. Elijah stared at the threatening words, heart racing. They were no longer playing fair. Whoever opposed him was clearly willing to escalate. In the silent darkness of his room, Elijah knew he faced a crossroads. He could either surrender now, allowing fear and intimidation to triumph, or press forward bravely, risking everything he had. Deep down, Elijah already knew his decision. He would face whatever storm awaited him. Because now, this battle was no longer just about him. It was about justice, equality, and ultimately, what Westbrook High, and perhaps the community itself, would stand for. The week following the anonymous threat brought a noticeable shift to Elijah's daily life. School had become an exhausting maze of whispers, furtive glances, and uneasy silences. Even teachers, who had remained mostly neutral, began choosing subtle sides, some casting supportive nods in Elijah's direction, others noticeably distant, their voices cooler, more restrained during interactions with him. Yet Elijah refused to yield, channeling his frustration into an even stronger determination. He knew this campaign had evolved far beyond a typical student election. It now symbolized a much larger struggle for justice and representation in their community. Julia, driven by an almost tireless sense of righteousness, had intensified their campaign. Each morning, she handed out leaflets at the school's entrance, speaking passionately to anyone who would listen. Marcus spent evenings creating videos and social media posts, sharing stories about Elijah's achievements, character, and their vision for Westbrook High. Together, the trio sought transparency, aiming to confront and dismantle the rumors directly. Still, the invisible opposition persisted, orchestrating quietly. Behind closed doors, certain community leaders expressed concern that Elijah's candidacy was stirring up unnecessary tensions. School board meetings grew tense, and angry parents spoke heatedly, criticizing Elijah and accusing him of using the election to push a broader racial agenda. One evening, at a heated public meeting in the school's auditorium, tensions reached a boiling point. Elijah decided to attend, flanked by his mother Catherine, his father Terrence, and Marcus's family. They sat quietly, listening to a succession of speakers passionately debating the situation at Westbrook. An older community member, William Prescott, rose stiffly to the microphone, his voice strained but firm. Our town has traditions, good traditions, that maintain unity and order. This election has turned into something it was never meant to be. If Elijah truly cared about unity, he'd step aside to restore harmony. Immediately, murmurs filled the room. Elijah felt heat rise within him, angered by Prescott's twisted logic. But before he could respond, Julia stood up defiantly, boldly stepping toward the microphone. Her voice trembled slightly with emotion, but resonated powerfully across the auditorium. "Respectfully, Mr. Prescott," Julia began, her eyes fiercely determined. "Elijah is fighting for exactly the kind of unity you're describing, one that includes everyone. If harmony in our town only exists because certain voices are silenced, that's not unity. It's oppression disguised as peace." Loud applause erupted from Elijah's supporters, drowning out scattered boos. Elijah felt deep gratitude for Julia's courage, knowing how much she risked by openly challenging a community elder. Julia turned toward Elijah, smiling bravely through the visible tension in her stance. After the meeting adjourned, Elijah walked into the parking lot, reflecting on Julia's words, feeling both inspired and troubled. As he reached his car, a familiar voice stopped him abruptly. "Elijah, hold on." Jared Collins approached hesitantly, alone this time, his usual bravado noticeably absent. "Can we talk a minute?" Elijah eyed Jared warily. "What is it, Jared?" Jared sighed deeply, clearly uncomfortable. "Look, I know things got ugly. I never wanted threats or any of this craziness. I just thought, I don't know, I thought I was protecting something important. But now, I'm starting to wonder if I was wrong." Elijah studied Jared closely, sensing sincerity beneath the hesitation. "So why come to me?" Jared rubbed his neck awkwardly. "Because people listen to me. I feel responsible. If someone took my words too far and started making threats, I owe it to you to help stop it." Elijah relaxed slightly, sensing genuine remorse. "Jared, words have power. Your voice matters. If you're sincere, then speak openly. Help end the division. Tell people we're not enemies." Jared nodded slowly. "I will. I'll do it publicly tomorrow." That night, Elijah lay awake, pondering Jared's sudden shift. He knew Jared held significant influence. If sincere, his change of heart could profoundly impact the election. Yet Elijah also recognized the complexities. Would Jared truly follow through publicly, risking his own status, or retreat again under pressure? The next morning brought fresh anticipation. Elijah arrived early at school, the air charged with expectancy. Students seemed more animated than usual, clustered in excited conversations near lockers and classrooms. Elijah spotted Marcus standing anxiously beside the main bulletin board, waving him over urgently. "Have you seen this yet?" Marcus asked quietly, pointing to a printed message pinned to the board. Elijah leaned in closely, heart sinking as he read the notice. Due to increasing concerns regarding student safety and escalating division, Westbrook High School's administration will consider canceling the upcoming student council elections. Final decision pending. Elijah stared numbly, disbelief turning to anger. "They're really going this far? To cancel the whole election?" Marcus nodded solemnly. "They'd rather shut it all down than risk you winning. It's unbelievable." Before Elijah could fully react, Principal Harmon appeared silently beside them, his expression grave. "Gentlemen, please step into my office." Elijah exchanged a tense glance with Marcus before silently following Harmon. The principal closed the door behind them, choosing his words carefully. "I'm sorry you had to find out like that, Elijah. You can't just cancel the elections," Elijah argued immediately, emotion thickening his voice. "That sends a terrible message. That intimidation and prejudice win." Harmon sighed heavily, rubbing his forehead in frustration. "I don't entirely disagree, Elijah, but my hands are tied. There's enormous pressure from influential community members and parents. They claim this election threatens student safety and community unity." Marcus shook his head bitterly. "They're just hiding behind safety to silence Elijah." Harmon hesitated, revealing rare honesty. "Perhaps, but unless we can definitively prove there's more than just vague intimidation, real evidence of wrongdoing, we have no choice." Elijah sat silently, digesting Harmon's words. Suddenly he realized something crucial. "Wait, Mr. Harmon, would clear evidence that someone's deliberately orchestrating this pressure make a difference?" Harmon nodded slowly. "Concrete proof would change everything. If we can demonstrate that threats or misinformation were intentionally used to influence the election, the administration would have to act." As Elijah and Marcus left Harmon's office, an idea sparked urgently. Marcus whispered excitedly, "Eli, what about Jared? He said he'd help. If he publicly exposes what's been happening behind closed doors, that might be our proof." At lunch, Elijah quickly located Jared. Approaching firmly, Elijah asked directly, "Jared, Were you pressured by adults or influential community members to oppose me? Jared hesitated briefly, then admitted quietly. Yes. Coach Peters, some school board members, and even a few parents. They convinced me you'd destroy Westbrook's unity. They fed me the narrative, encouraged me to rally others. Elijah pressed urgently. Will you testify publicly? It's our only chance to stop them from canceling the election. Jared hesitated again, visibly wrestling with fear. Finally, he nodded decisively. Yes, I owe you this. I'll stand with you publicly. By afternoon, word spread quickly that Jared Collins planned to speak openly in the school's central courtyard. Hundreds gathered eagerly, tension palpable. Elijah, Julia, and Marcus stood silently beside Jared as he stepped forward, visibly nervous yet resolute. I was wrong, Jared began shakily, his voice amplified clearly. I let influential people use me to spread lies and division. Elijah Brooks isn't a threat. He's exactly the leader Westbrook needs. Adults in our community have actively pressured students, including myself, to undermine his campaign. I won't be part of it anymore. Gasps and murmurs erupted throughout the gathered crowd. Jared's revelation shocked students and teachers alike, immediately shifting perceptions and narratives dramatically. As the crowd dispersed, Principal Harmon approached Elijah thoughtfully, voice quietly serious. I'm calling an emergency administrative meeting. Jared's revelation changes everything. Your election is back on, Elijah. This time under direct administrative protection. Elijah stood quietly, overwhelmed yet deeply relieved. Marcus grinned triumphantly. Julia hugged him tightly, joy mixed with tears. Yet deep inside, Elijah sensed this victory would not end their struggle entirely. The forces opposing him had suffered a setback, but they were still out there, now angrier, desperate, and even more dangerous. The days following Jared Collins's shocking public revelation became a turning point at Westbrook High. The atmosphere around campus shifted dramatically, from confusion and suspicion to a clear and determined pursuit of truth. Students previously hesitant to voice their support openly now gathered courage, inspired by Jared's public stance and Elijah's unwavering strength. Elijah felt a new surge of momentum, but with it came heightened awareness of the risks. The anonymous threats intensified, now more direct and aggressive, arriving almost daily through text messages and notes slipped secretly into his locker. The school administration, aware of the escalating hostility, finally took action, increasing surveillance and publicly denouncing any form of intimidation. Despite these measures, Elijah felt the pressure mounting around him. One morning, Elijah found Julia waiting anxiously near his locker. Her usually confident demeanor had been replaced by visible worry. Eli, we need to talk, right now, she urged, glancing nervously around them. He nodded, sensing urgency. Together they moved to an empty corner of the library, ensuring privacy before she continued. Something weird happened last night, Julia began, her voice unusually hesitant. Someone messaged me anonymously, warning me to stay away from your campaign. They mentioned details about my family, personal things no one else could know. Elijah felt his stomach tighten painfully. Julia, I'm sorry. This shouldn't involve you like this. She shook her head defiantly, regaining some of her trademark confidence. No, Elijah, don't apologize. I'm with you all the way. But it's clear someone powerful wants us silenced. They're desperate enough to threaten not just you, but anyone close to you. Marcus appeared moments later, visibly tense. He immediately understood the gravity of their conversation. Let me guess. Threats? Julia nodded grimly. They're personal now. Marcus sighed deeply. Whoever's doing this knows exactly how to hit us hardest. They're not amateurs. Elijah felt anger rising within him, mixed with profound frustration. We can't just let them scare us into silence. We need proof, real proof, to expose who's behind all this. Marcus's eyes lit up suddenly. Then let's catch them. We know they've been texting threats. Maybe we can track them or set a trap. We can't just wait around for the administration to figure it out. Julia nodded fiercely. Agreed. If they're going personal, we hit back by exposing them. That afternoon, Marcus set up a meeting in his garage, equipped with laptops, spare phones, and determination. Marcus, always skilled with technology, had devised a simple yet ingenious plan. We'll bait them, Marcus explained, setting up an encrypted chat app on Elijah's phone. Send out a message suggesting you have evidence identifying them. Make it vague, believable enough to panic them into responding aggressively. Julia smiled nervously, agreeing. If they respond, We can try to track their location or trace their digital footprint. Elijah hesitated briefly, recognizing the risk involved, but ultimately agreed. Carefully composing the bait, Elijah typed, "I know exactly who's behind the threats. I have proof, and soon everyone else will too." The message was sent into the digital void, and they waited anxiously. Silence stretched painfully for several minutes before Elijah's phone buzzed sharply with a reply from an unknown number. "You're bluffing. Stop now or face consequences beyond your control." Marcus immediately began tracking the number, his fingers flying expertly over the keyboard. "Hold them for a moment longer," he urged. Elijah replied firmly, fingers shaking slightly. "I'm done hiding. Your identity won't stay secret much longer." Another reply came instantly, harsh and threatening. "You don't know who you're dealing with, Brooks. Back down, or someone else might suffer." Julia's eyes widened, visibly shaken by the intensity of the threats. Elijah glanced at Marcus anxiously. "Any luck tracing them?" Marcus's voice held a strange excitement. "Almost there. Just a few more seconds." Suddenly, Marcus shouted triumphantly, spinning his screen toward them. "Got it. The messages originated from a phone near the downtown community center. Whoever sent these texts is there right now." Elijah's heart quickened. "That's where the city council offices are, isn't it?" Julia's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "It has to be someone influential. Someone connected to the community." Marcus nodded gravely. "If they're at the community center, odds are high they're tied directly to community leadership. Elijah, this might go higher than we imagined." Determined to act immediately, the trio drove quickly toward downtown Alexandria, nerves tightening with every mile. Reaching the community center, they noticed several familiar cars parked outside, one belonging unmistakably to Coach Peters and another bearing the personalized plates of William Prescott. Julia whispered nervously, "We need solid proof. Photos, recordings, something undeniable." Quietly slipping inside, they cautiously approached the central conference room, where muffled voices drifted clearly into the hall. Elijah recognized Prescott's authoritative tone immediately. "This situation has escalated beyond control. Collins betrayed us openly. Now Brooks claims he knows everything. We must end this now." Coach Peters spoke up anxiously. "But how? If we push too far, it'll backfire. People sympathize with Elijah. He's gained too much support." Prescott growled impatiently. "We make it personal. Not him directly. Someone close enough to break his resolve. Intimidation works best when consequences are real." Julia stiffened beside Elijah, her hand trembling. Elijah silently signaled Marcus to record everything. Marcus complied instantly, holding his phone steadily, capturing the chilling conversation. Prescott continued coldly. "This town can't afford the instability he's causing. Our influence depends on keeping the existing order intact. Elijah Brooks is disrupting that order. He must be neutralized, politically or otherwise." Elijah felt sick, listening to their blatant disregard for ethics or law. Anger rose in him again, fueling his resolve. Suddenly, footsteps echoed sharply from behind. Turning quickly, Elijah froze as Principal Harmon appeared quietly, clearly stunned to see them. "What are you doing here?" Harmon demanded softly. Marcus boldly showed the recorded conversation, his voice steady but charged. "They're planning something serious against Elijah. We needed proof, and now we have it." Harmon listened carefully, growing visibly disturbed. He hesitated, then finally sighed heavily. "Follow me." Without another word, Harmon boldly entered the conference room, startling Prescott, Peters, and several others who looked up sharply, their faces blanching when they noticed Elijah standing directly behind the principal. "William," Harmon said coldly, addressing Prescott directly, "you've crossed the line. Intimidation, threats, this is criminal behavior." Prescott sputtered indignantly, recovering quickly. "You're mistaken. These are private discussions." Marcus stepped forward defiantly, holding up his phone. "Not private enough. We recorded everything." Coach Peters paled instantly, realizing the gravity of their situation. Prescott's eyes flashed with fury, but before he could respond, Harmon interjected firmly. "It's over, William. This ends now." Prescott hesitated, weighing options, before finally slamming his hand angrily on the table. "This isn't finished, Harmon." Principal Harmon met his gaze steadily. "Yes, it is." Outside the community center, Elijah stood quietly, his mind reeling from the confrontation. Principal Harmon approached gently, voice softening with sincerity. "Elijah, I owe you an apology," Harmon admitted humbly. "I underestimated your strength. I chose peace over justice. But now, justice demands action. Elijah nodded slowly, relieved yet shaken. It's not over yet, is it? Harmon sighed deeply. No, not entirely. But you've exposed them publicly, weakening their influence significantly. Justice will follow, but expect resistance. People in power rarely surrender quietly. Driving home that night, Elijah's mind raced. They had struck a decisive blow, exposing corruption at the heart of the community. Yet Elijah knew the battle was far from over. The powerful individuals they'd confronted wouldn't simply fade away. They'd strike back, more desperate and dangerous than before. Despite everything, Elijah felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had uncovered truths hidden deep within their community. Truths that demanded courage and sacrifice. Whatever happened next, Elijah Brooks was ready, knowing the fight for justice had only just begun. The aftermath of Elijah's confrontation with Prescott, Coach Peters, and the influential figures at the community center spread quickly through Westbrook High and the broader Alexandria community. The revelation that respected community members had deliberately orchestrated intimidation tactics against a student sent shockwaves far beyond the halls of the school. Elijah Brooks, who initially just wanted fairness in a simple school election, now stood at the center of a storm that threatened the foundations of the town's established order. The next morning, Elijah walked cautiously into school, fully aware that every pair of eyes was fixed on him. The atmosphere felt tense yet electric, charged with anticipation and uncertainty. Students murmured quietly, stepping aside as he approached, creating a clear path through the crowded hallways. Though uneasy, Elijah held his head high, determined not to appear shaken or fearful. Reaching his locker, he found Julia and Marcus waiting, both visibly anxious but resolute. Marcus gave him a reassuring nod. "How are you holding up, Eli?" Elijah sighed quietly. "I honestly don't know. It feels like we stirred up something even bigger than we realized." Julia nodded fiercely, determined. "But we did the right thing. People deserve to know the truth." Marcus glanced down the hallway nervously. "Speaking of truth, looks like we have company." Elijah turned to see Jared Collins approaching, flanked by Emma Russell. Jared appeared solemn, determination now etched into his once arrogant expression. Emma stood confidently beside him, eyes blazing with purpose. "Eli," Jared began quietly, extending a hand sincerely. "I heard what you guys did, exposing Prescott and Coach Peters. That was brave. You have my full support." Elijah shook Jared's hand firmly, sensing sincerity and genuine remorse in the gesture. "Thanks, Jared. It means a lot." Emma stepped forward, her voice clear and authoritative. "We need to keep momentum going. Students are finally waking up, realizing how manipulated we've all been. Now's our chance to change Westbrook permanently." Julia smiled gratefully, relieved. "She's right. But this fight is far from over." As the morning announcements began, Principal Harmon's voice echoed solemnly over the intercom, immediately silencing the bustling hallway. "Students and faculty." Harmon's voice resonated firmly. "By now, most of you have heard about the disturbing revelations concerning recent threats against Elijah Brooks and other students. Let me be clear. Our administration unequivocally condemns these actions. An investigation is underway, and those responsible will face serious consequences. This school will no longer tolerate intimidation or prejudice. The student council elections will proceed, protected by enhanced oversight to ensure fairness and safety." A hush followed Harmon's declaration, quickly broken by a spontaneous wave of applause that filled the halls. Elijah felt warmth spread through his chest, buoyed by the supportive reaction of his classmates. Yet deep within him lingered caution, knowing the fight wasn't truly finished. Throughout the day, Elijah encountered waves of newfound supporters. Students previously silent or indifferent now openly praised his courage. Teachers who once avoided confrontation voiced their pride, offering discreet encouragement. However, lurking beneath the outward support, Elijah still noticed pockets of resentment and hostility from those loyal to the old order. In history class, Mr. Rodriguez paused the lesson on civil rights movements to acknowledge Elijah directly, his voice steady with quiet admiration. Movements for justice often begin unexpectedly, with ordinary individuals bravely standing against injustice. Elijah, you've shown that courage firsthand. Remember, true change requires perseverance and resilience. Elijah felt his face flush slightly at the acknowledgement, humbled but strengthened. "Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez," he responded quietly, deeply moved by the teacher's support. Later, walking toward lunch, Elijah heard raised voices from a side corridor. Curiously approaching, he recognized Chloe Evans arguing heatedly with Nate Palmer, both visibly agitated. "You can't seriously still defend them, Nate," Chloe shouted passionately. "They threatened Elijah and others. They manipulated all of us." Nate, arms folded stubbornly, shook his head defensively. "It's not that simple, Chloe. Elijah's campaign stirred all this trouble. None of this would have happened if he just kept quiet." Elijah stepped forward quietly, startling them both. "Maybe you're right, Nate," Elijah said calmly, facing him directly. "But silence just means acceptance. What happened here needed to be exposed, no matter how uncomfortable." Nate hesitated, clearly conflicted. "Look, Elijah, I don't hate you personally. But look at what your candidacy's done. It's torn everyone apart." Chloe interjected sharply, eyes flashing. "No, Nate. The truth didn't cause division. The people hiding it did. Elijah's just the one brave enough to confront it." Nate stared silently, the truth of her words clearly unsettling him. After a tense moment, he nodded stiffly, turning away without another word. Chloe sighed heavily, watching him go before turning toward Elijah, regretful but determined. "I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner," she admitted quietly. "You deserved better from me." Elijah smiled gently, sincerity evident in his voice. "You're speaking up now. That matters most." As the week continued, tensions within Alexandria itself became undeniable. Public meetings drew angry confrontations between those demanding immediate accountability and those insisting that Prescott and Peters were victims of misunderstanding. News of the controversy had reached local media, amplifying divisions across the town. Elijah's parents, deeply concerned, found themselves increasingly targeted, receiving unsettling phone calls and letters accusing Elijah of deliberately causing community unrest. Catherine Brooks, usually composed, appeared strained and exhausted during dinner conversations. Elijah could sense her worry clearly. One evening, a sharp knock at the door interrupted family dinner. Elijah's father opened cautiously, revealing Angela Foster standing anxiously outside, expression grave. "Terrence, Catherine, Elijah, I apologize for the intrusion, but we need to talk immediately," Angela said urgently. Inviting her inside, Elijah felt unease surge. Angela spoke quickly, her voice tight. "I've received credible warnings from sources inside City Council. Prescott's allies are attempting to spin the narrative publicly, painting Elijah as intentionally divisive, claiming he orchestrated everything for attention." Catherine inhaled sharply, angered. "They're trying to smear Elijah?" Angela nodded solemnly. "Precisely. Elijah has inspired real change, but now they're desperate, using every means possible to silence and discredit him." Elijah stood resolutely, voice firm with determination. "Then we fight back harder. Truth's on our side. People just need to see it." Angela smiled gently, impressed. "You're remarkable, Elijah. Your bravery gives me hope." Late that night, Elijah's phone lit up suddenly. Nervously, he opened the anonymous message. "Last chance, Brooks. Drop out now, or your family pays." Heart pounding, Elijah sat frozen. Threats against him were one thing, but now they were targeting those he loved most. Despite the fear rising within him, Elijah knew surrender wasn't an option. Instead, he made a decisive choice, forwarding the threat immediately to Principal Harmon and Angela Foster, refusing to hide. The next morning, Harmon addressed the entire school again, his voice trembling with barely contained anger. "We received yet another threat, directly targeting Elijah Brooks and his family. This crosses every line imaginable. To whoever sent these messages, I promise justice will find you. Westbrook High stands united behind Elijah Brooks. We won't tolerate hatred or fear here." The response was immediate and powerful. Students rising spontaneously in classrooms across the campus, voicing unequivocal support for Elijah. Yet beneath the unity lay a troubling truth. Those behind the threats weren't likely to back down easily. Elijah knew he stood at the heart of a critical battle for the soul of Westbrook High and Alexandria itself. With resolve clearer than ever, Elijah understood that confronting powerful interests came at a cost. Yet he stood ready, unshaken by fear, knowing his fight had become far bigger than himself. It was now a struggle for justice, fairness, and the community's future. In the days following Principal Harmon's powerful address to Westbrook High, Elijah Brooks found himself both profoundly supported and increasingly isolated. The student body largely rallied behind him, energized by his resilience in the face of escalating threats. Yet, beneath the surface, a dangerous tension continued to simmer, threatening to boil over at any moment. Security around the school tightened visibly, with uniformed officers patrolling hallways and monitoring entrances. The media, both local and national, had taken notice of the story, highlighting Elijah's courage and the broader implications for race, representation, and justice within American communities. News vans became a common sight outside Westbrook's gates, reporters eager to document the growing conflict. Elijah felt increasingly uncomfortable with the media spotlight. While some praised his bravery, others spun narratives of division, painting him as an agitator disrupting the peace. It weighed heavily on him, knowing his intentions had been twisted, distorted by powerful interests, desperately seeking to maintain their control. One afternoon, as Elijah walked toward the library, he noticed a small group gathered near the front office. Marcus and Julia stood there, visibly tense, speaking animatedly with a woman Elijah quickly recognized as a reporter from the local news channel. Approaching cautiously, he caught snippets of conversation. "Students feel unsafe, deeply divided by recent events," the reporter said smoothly, microphone in hand. Marcus, clearly frustrated, responded sharply. "The division didn't start with Elijah. It started with the people who threatened him. He's not responsible for the hate others directed toward him." Julia added passionately, eyes blazing. "Elijah only stood for fairness. It's easy to blame him for exposing ugly truths, but facing those truths is necessary." Elijah joined quietly, immediately drawing attention. The reporter turned toward him eagerly, pressing the microphone forward. "Elijah Brooks, your candidacy has sparked significant controversy and division at Westbrook High. Do you regret running, given everything that's happened?" Elijah hesitated briefly, measuring his words carefully. "I regret nothing. Change is uncomfortable, especially when confronting injustice. If my candidacy revealed deeper issues, that only proves why we needed it." The reporter pressed further, sensing a story. "You've received serious threats. Is continuing this election worth risking your safety or your family's?" Elijah's voice firmed, eyes determined. "I believe justice is always worth risk. I won't be silenced by threats, and neither should anyone else." Julia placed a supportive hand gently on Elijah's shoulder, visibly proud. Marcus stood silently beside him, unwavering. Students gathered nearby applauded spontaneously, creating a ripple of support that momentarily overwhelmed the reporter's questions. Later, at home, Elijah's parents watched the broadcast anxiously. Terrence Brooks, typically reserved, expressed deep concern. "Elijah, you've shown incredible bravery, but the threats are escalating. Are you certain this fight is worth the danger?" Catherine intervened gently, her voice calm yet firm. "Terrence, we raised Elijah to stand for what's right. He can't back down now, not when so many people count on him." Elijah nodded gratefully, addressing his father directly. "Dad, you always taught me courage meant standing firm when things got difficult. I can't retreat, not now." Terrence sighed heavily, pride mingling with worry in his expression. "Just promise you'll stay careful, Elijah. This town's more dangerous than we realized." The next morning brought fresh turmoil. Elijah arrived at school to find a commotion outside. Several large posters bearing Elijah's face had been torn down, replaced with offensive graffiti, racial slurs, and hateful messages scrawled crudely across the walls of Westbrook High. The hateful display sent a shockwave through students, some visibly shaken, others enraged by the blatant racism. Principal Harmon, visibly angered, stood outside addressing the gathered students and faculty urgently. "This cowardly act of hatred is unacceptable and criminal. Westbrook High will not tolerate racism. Those responsible will be found and prosecuted." Marcus clenched his fists tightly, voice shaking with anger. "They're desperate now. Desperate enough to show their real faces openly." Julia shook her head bitterly, tears threatening. "How can people be this hateful?" Elijah felt numb, heart aching deeply. Yet beneath his pain surged determination. "We won't let their hatred win. They did this to scare us, because they know they're losing." Throughout the morning, police interviewed students, reviewed surveillance footage, and gathered evidence. Yet tensions remained dangerously high. Students organized spontaneous solidarity events, gathering during lunch, creating banners supporting Elijah and denouncing racism. Though deeply heartened by their actions, Elijah still felt the immense weight of responsibility pressing heavily upon him. That afternoon, Principal Harmon summoned Elijah privately. Inside Harmon's office, the principal sat solemnly, clearly burdened. "Elijah, I spoke to authorities earlier. They've identified 2 adults involved in last night's vandalism. Unfortunately, one is connected directly to Prescott's circle. The situation is escalating dangerously." Elijah exhaled sharply. "What happens now?" Harmon hesitated, speaking gently. Authorities advise strongly that, given credible threats, you consider temporarily stepping back for your own safety. Elijah stiffened immediately, voice shaking slightly. You want me to surrender? No, Harmon corrected firmly. I'm not advising surrender, only caution. Elijah, these individuals aren't rational. They'll go to extreme lengths to silence you. Elijah met Harmon's gaze steadily. If I step down, they win. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about what Westbrook High represents. Harmon nodded solemnly, admiration evident. Then we stand firm, together. Later, leaving Harmon's office, Elijah encountered Jared Collins again. Jared appeared deeply troubled. Approaching Elijah hesitantly, Jared spoke quietly, regret heavy in his voice. Elijah, I'm sorry this has gotten so dangerous. It feels partly my fault. If I'd spoken up sooner, maybe things wouldn't have escalated. Elijah shook his head reassuringly. You can't blame yourself, Jared. The truth needed to come out. It just came with consequences. Jared exhaled heavily. But what now? How can we end this madness? Elijah smiled gently. We win the election fairly, openly. That's the only way to show everyone their hatred failed. That evening, however, Elijah's determination faced its most severe test yet. At home, while his parents slept, a sudden noise startled him awake. A loud shattering of glass downstairs. Heart pounding, Elijah rushed downstairs, finding their living room window shattered, glass scattered everywhere. A heavy brick lay menacingly on the floor, a note crudely attached. Final warning, Brooks. Drop out, or we come back for your family. Terrified but defiant, Elijah immediately called authorities. His parents, shaken but unharmed, embraced him tightly as police documented the threatening act. As police left, Elijah stood silently in their damaged home, reflecting deeply. They had now threatened his family directly, crossing every conceivable line. Yet rather than feeling defeated, Elijah sensed newfound strength rising powerfully within him. Their desperation revealed their weakness. They feared the change he represented. In the silent hours afterward, Elijah resolved firmly that nothing, not threats, intimidation, or even direct danger, would compel him to retreat. His candidacy had ignited something powerful, revealing both painful truths and courageous allies. No matter what lay ahead, Elijah Brooks knew clearly now. His fight had become symbolic, transcending mere student politics, representing justice, dignity, and courage itself. As dawn broke, Elijah stood amidst shattered glass, determinedly embracing his role in the struggle ahead. His adversaries sought desperately to silence him, but Elijah Brooks would never surrender, fully prepared for whatever lay ahead. The morning after the violent threat to Elijah's home, news of the incident spread swiftly through Westbrook High and the broader community. The shattered window, the brick thrown in hate, and the ominous note had transformed Elijah's struggle from a school issue into a stark symbol of resistance against deeply rooted racism and prejudice. The attack drew immediate outrage from many but equally emboldened those who saw Elijah's courage as a direct threat to their established order. At school, an unprecedented wave of solidarity emerged. Students from diverse backgrounds gathered at the front gates early, holding banners demanding justice and pledging unwavering support for Elijah. Chants of "We stand with Elijah" echoed powerfully through the chilly morning air, sending a clear message. Hate would not silence them. Elijah arrived cautiously, visibly moved by the crowd. Julia and Marcus stood proudly among the students, their faces resolute yet weary from recent events. Elijah's entrance sparked cheers, and he humbly acknowledged their support, overwhelmed by the unity before him. Yet even amid the warmth of solidarity, Elijah felt an undercurrent of anxiety, a deep realization that their opponents, though exposed, were likely to react with increasing desperation. Principal Harmon greeted Elijah solemnly at the front steps, his voice carrying unmistakable seriousness. Elijah, I've informed authorities about the situation. Security measures have been doubled around the school. Your safety, and the safety of all students, is our absolute priority. Elijah nodded gratefully. Thank you, sir. But we can't let this distract us from the election. It needs to proceed as scheduled. Harmon hesitated, clearly conflicted. I admire your bravery, Elijah. But after the attack at your home, are you certain? Absolutely, Elijah answered firmly, voice steady with resolve. Backing down now hands victory to fear and hatred. We have to show them they can't intimidate us into silence. The principal exhaled heavily, nodding in quiet admiration. Then we'll stand strong together. Throughout the day, tension remained high. Elijah felt the weight of every stare and overheard fragments of countless whispered conversations, some supportive, others tinged with suspicion or resentment. The media attention intensified, with reporters stationed permanently outside the school gates, eager to document each new development. Yet within Westbrook's walls, Elijah sensed growing unity, even among those who previously hesitated to take sides openly. During lunch, the cafeteria buzzed with tense excitement. Elijah sat quietly, flanked closely by Marcus, Julia, Jared, Emma, and Chloe, who had recently joined their table openly, signaling her full commitment to Elijah's cause. The group exchanged weary yet determined glances, understanding clearly the stakes involved. Emma spoke first, voice steady yet strained. "Elijah, we've come a long way. People who never spoke up are finally seeing what's at stake. Your courage is changing minds." Chloe nodded earnestly. "Even Nate's starting to question everything he believed. It's painful, but necessary. You're forcing everyone to confront truths they wanted hidden." Marcus smiled faintly, pride evident. "This fight has grown bigger than any one person. But Eli, you're the one who gave people the strength to stand up." Before Elijah could respond, Nate Palmer approached hesitantly, standing awkwardly at their table's edge. Elijah turned toward him calmly, curious but cautious. "Elijah," Nate began quietly, visibly uncomfortable. "I wanted to say I'm sorry about everything. I never thought things would get this bad." Elijah studied Nate carefully, seeing sincerity behind his discomfort. "Nate, none of us expected things to escalate like this, but silence allowed hate to thrive. It's never too late to stand for what's right." Nate exhaled deeply, nodding slowly. "Then let me help. Openly. Let people see that even those who opposed you can change. Maybe others will follow." Marcus reached out, shaking Nate's hand warmly. "That's real bravery, Nate. Welcome to the right side of history." As lunch ended, Nate's public shift caused immediate ripples among students. His status as a popular athlete made his decision impossible to ignore, prompting further reflection among previously silent or hesitant students. Later that afternoon, another dramatic event unfolded. Elijah received an urgent message summoning him immediately to Principal Harmon's office. Arriving swiftly, Elijah found Harmon joined by Angela Foster, Jared Collins, and 2 uniformed police officers. The atmosphere was tense yet purposeful. "Elijah," Angela spoke calmly, eyes serious. "Authorities have identified and arrested 2 individuals directly involved in threats against you, including the vandalism at your home. One confessed fully, implicating William Prescott as orchestrating these actions." Elijah felt stunned, a mixture of relief and anger flooding him. Jared visibly stiffened at Prescott's name, clearly affected deeply. Jared spoke softly, emotion thickening his voice. "I trusted Prescott, believed his rhetoric about unity, but he manipulated us all, twisting our fears into hatred. Elijah, I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." Elijah addressed Jared gently. "You're here now, Jared. That matters." One of the officers stepped forward, speaking firmly. "We need your cooperation fully, Elijah, to build the strongest possible case against Prescott. His influence in the community means it won't be easy, but your testimony could change everything." Elijah nodded without hesitation. "I'll do whatever it takes." Word of Prescott's arrest spread swiftly, dramatically altering public opinion throughout Alexandria. Many previously reluctant community members, shocked by Prescott's direct involvement, publicly condemned him, finally recognizing the depth of corruption Elijah had bravely confronted. That evening, at a hastily organized community gathering in Westbrook's auditorium, emotions ran high. Elijah attended alongside his family, flanked by Marcus, Julia, Jared, Emma, and Chloe. Principal Harmon took the stage first, addressing the community solemnly. "Tonight, we confront painful truths revealed through bravery," Harmon began powerfully. "Elijah Brooks's courage exposed hatred and prejudice hidden within our community. Now we must decide collectively, who are we? Will we choose fear or courage, division or unity?" The auditorium erupted spontaneously into applause, clearly signaling a profound shift. Angela Foster followed Harmon, urging reconciliation and unity through accountability and truth. When Elijah finally took the stage, the room fell silent, hundreds listening intently. He spoke clearly, voice steady yet emotional. "I never imagined my candidacy would become symbolic, but we've learned painful lessons about the cost of silence and the necessity of courage. Tonight isn't about me. It's about all of us. Together we decide who Alexandria becomes. Will we confront injustice openly, or return to comfortable silence. His words resonated deeply, igniting heartfelt applause and cheers. Elijah stood quietly, deeply moved, realizing fully the magnitude of their collective journey. Yet even as the community rallied openly behind Elijah, he sensed lingering danger. Prescott's arrest hadn't fully erased underlying hatred. Resentment still smoldered among those who feared change. Elijah knew the upcoming election was not simply about winning a position. It was a referendum on Alexandria's very identity. That night, exhausted yet resolute, Elijah reflected deeply. His campaign had revealed harsh truths, but had also inspired incredible bravery. The fight was far from over, but Elijah now understood fully the profound significance of their struggle. Despite the remaining dangers, Elijah Brooks felt unwavering confidence. His courage had ignited something powerful, an unstoppable momentum for justice and change. The forces opposing him were weakened but still dangerous. Yet Elijah stood ready, determined, and unafraid, knowing the tides had finally begun to turn decisively in their favor. In the days leading up to the election, Alexandria teetered on the edge between hopeful unity and bitter resentment. Elijah Brooks had become a symbol, celebrated by many as the courageous voice of justice, yet fiercely resented by a minority desperate to preserve their diminishing control. Prescott's arrest had shocked the community, exposing a network of manipulation and intimidation that reached far deeper than anyone initially realized. Despite the revelations, or perhaps because of them, the school election loomed larger than ever. Elijah felt immense pressure, acutely aware that the outcome represented far more than a personal victory or loss. It symbolized the very soul of Westbrook High and the broader community itself. Each morning, Elijah found his locker overflowing with notes of support, heartfelt messages thanking him for his courage. Yet alongside encouragement lingered new anonymous threats, more desperate and aggressive, warning him explicitly against continuing. Principal Harmon, now openly protective, ensured Elijah was closely watched by security throughout the day. Yet Elijah never wavered, determined to face whatever lay ahead. As election day approached, tensions mounted palpably. Students actively debated Elijah's candidacy, often passionately, sometimes angrily. Teachers carefully navigated charged discussions, encouraging thoughtful reflection while attempting to maintain neutrality. The community, likewise, grappled with the powerful implications of Elijah's struggle. At home, Elijah's parents remained steadfastly supportive yet deeply worried. Terrence Brooks, typically reserved and composed, voiced profound anxiety one evening, his voice strained with emotion. "Elijah, your courage amazes me every day. But the risks, they're increasing. People driven by hate rarely surrender quietly." Elijah met his father's gaze steadily, determination clear. "Dad, I know it's dangerous, but backing down would mean surrendering to fear. I have to finish what we started." Catherine Brooks squeezed Elijah's hand reassuringly. "You're not alone, Elijah. Remember that. This community stands with you." Finally, election day arrived, bringing a crisp autumn morning filled with anxious anticipation. The campus buzzed with palpable energy, students eagerly lining hallways to vote, teachers closely supervising, ensuring fairness amid heightened security. Elijah arrived early, accompanied closely by Marcus and Julia. Crowds of students greeted him warmly, applauding spontaneously, chanting his name powerfully. Yet despite this outpouring of support, Elijah felt nervous, keenly aware of the stakes. Inside the voting area, Elijah cast his own ballot quietly, emotions surging deeply as he checked his own name. Marcus jokingly nudged him gently. "Feels surreal, doesn't it?" Elijah smiled faintly. "Beyond surreal. No matter what happens today, everything changes." Throughout the day, voting proceeded smoothly, yet unease lingered. Late in the afternoon, as voting neared completion, Elijah's phone suddenly buzzed urgently. A new anonymous message flashed ominously across his screen. "You think you've won? Think again. We have one last surprise planned for you." Heart pounding anxiously, Elijah quickly alerted Principal Harmon, who immediately heightened campus security, visibly disturbed. Despite extensive searches, nothing suspicious emerged, yet anxiety hung thickly in the air, overshadowing election excitement. Finally, as evening approached, votes were collected and secured carefully, counted meticulously by faculty supervised closely by Angela Foster and city officials. The community gathered anxiously in Westbrook's crowded auditorium, anticipation thickening palpably. Principal Harmon stepped solemnly onto the stage, the auditorium falling instantly silent, every eye fixed anxiously upon him. Elijah sat quietly, flanked closely by his parents, Marcus, Julia, Jared, Emma, Chloe, and Nate. The group exchanged anxious, hopeful glances, understanding fully the significance of this moment. Harmon spoke steadily, voice resonating powerfully. Tonight, Westbrook High has spoken decisively. Despite unprecedented attempts to intimidate, manipulate, and silence students, democracy prevailed courageously. I'm honored now to announce your new student council president, with the highest voter turnout and largest margin in Westbrook's history, Elijah Brooks. The auditorium erupted instantly into deafening cheers, applause echoing powerfully, students and families rising spontaneously in jubilant celebration. Elijah sat momentarily stunned, overwhelmed emotionally, finally standing humbly as his friends hugged him tightly, celebrating exuberantly. Taking the stage, Elijah faced the cheering crowd, deeply moved. "Thank you," he began, voice shaking slightly with emotion. "Your support means everything. Tonight isn't my victory alone. It belongs to all of us. We chose courage over fear, justice over silence. Let's build a school and a community that truly represents everyone." Cheers and applause erupted again, resonating powerfully through the crowded auditorium. Yet amid celebration, an unsettling noise erupted suddenly from the back, a loud, angry shout interrupting festivities sharply. "You've destroyed everything!" a familiar voice shouted angrily. Elijah froze instantly, recognizing the voice as Coach Peters, standing unsteadily near the auditorium's rear, visibly agitated, eyes blazing angrily. "Prescott was right. You've torn our community apart." Security swiftly approached Peters cautiously, yet he continued shouting, voice trembling with desperation and anger. "We built this town on unity. Your election destroys everything we created." Elijah addressed Peters firmly yet calmly. "Unity built on exclusion isn't unity, it's oppression. Our community deserves better, Coach Peters." Peters hesitated momentarily, visibly shaken by Elijah's calmness, before security gently escorted him from the auditorium, leaving stunned silence behind. Elijah faced the crowd solemnly, speaking again thoughtfully. "Change frightens some people deeply, but fear must never justify injustice or intimidation. Tonight we chose hope. Let's never retreat from it." The crowd responded powerfully, applause and cheering resuming passionately. Elijah stepped down from the stage, surrounded warmly by family and friends, emotions overwhelming. Jared embraced Elijah tightly, voice heavy with genuine remorse and respect. "Thank you, Elijah. You changed all of us." Yet despite this profound moment of triumph, Elijah sensed lingering dangers. Peters's outburst revealed underlying resentment still lurking beneath their victory. Later that night, as celebrations concluded, Elijah walked slowly to his family's car, lost in thought, accompanied closely by Marcus and Julia. Suddenly, headlights flashed blindingly, tires screeching sharply nearby. Elijah turned swiftly, heart pounding with sudden dread, recognizing instantly the danger. A vehicle, accelerating recklessly, careened directly toward them, intent unmistakably clear. "Watch out!" Marcus shouted desperately, pushing Elijah aside instinctively. Elijah stumbled sharply, landing heavily as the vehicle narrowly missed him, striking Marcus violently instead, sending him sprawling painfully across pavement. "Marcus!" Elijah screamed desperately, rushing frantically to his fallen friend. Julia screamed hysterically, calling urgently for help. The vehicle sped away rapidly, disappearing into darkness, leaving horrifying chaos behind. Emergency responders arrived swiftly, rushing Marcus urgently to the hospital, Elijah accompanying anxiously. Throughout the night, doctors fought desperately to save Marcus. His family and friends gathered anxiously, praying intensely. Hours passed agonizingly, until finally a doctor emerged, expression solemn. "Marcus survived, but his injuries are severe. He'll recover, but it will take time." Relief surged powerfully among the gathered friends, yet anguish lingered. Elijah sat quietly beside Marcus's hospital bed, tears filling his eyes, guilt weighing deeply. Marcus, weak yet conscious, reached gently toward Elijah, voice faint yet determined. "Eli, don't blame yourself," Marcus whispered weakly. "We did what needed to be done." Elijah squeezed Marcus's hand gently, voice breaking emotionally. "Marcus, I never meant—" Marcus interrupted gently, eyes fiercely determined. "This wasn't your fault. Hatred caused this, not you. Keep fighting, Eli. Promise me." Elijah nodded solemnly, resolve hardening powerfully within him. "I promise." Through tragedy, Elijah's determination intensified profoundly. He'd won the election, but hatred lingered dangerously. Yet despite everything, Elijah Brooks stood firm, courageous, resolute, determined to build justice from tragedy itself. In the days following Marcus's violent injury, Elijah found himself at the center of an emotional whirlwind. The celebration of his historic victory was overshadowed by the brutal reality of the hatred that still simmered beneath the surface of Alexandria. Marcus, hospitalized and recovering slowly, became a symbol himself of sacrifice, courage, and the profound human cost of fighting injustice. Throughout Alexandria, outrage surged as news spread of the deliberate attack targeting Elijah. The reckless attempt on his life galvanized the community in ways previously unimaginable. Many who had hesitated to take sides now firmly condemned the violence, recognizing clearly the dangerous consequences of unchecked hatred. The media, once ambivalent, now portrayed Elijah unequivocally as a hero, an inspiring figure who bravely confronted prejudice and violence head-on. National news outlets amplified the story, drawing widespread attention and powerful expressions of solidarity from across the country. Letters, messages, and statements of support flooded in, profoundly moving Elijah and strengthening his resolve to continue his fight for meaningful change. Despite overwhelming support, Elijah struggled deeply with guilt over Marcus's injury. He spent hours each day at the hospital, quietly sitting beside Marcus's bed, reflecting silently on their journey and the painful price Marcus had paid simply for standing by him. Marcus, however, maintained an unwaveringly positive outlook, reassuring Elijah repeatedly that he harbored no blame. One quiet afternoon in Marcus's hospital room, Elijah voiced his lingering doubts softly. "Marcus, you've suffered because of me, because of my decisions. How can you forgive me so easily?" Marcus smiled faintly, eyes clear with conviction. "Eli, it wasn't your fault. I chose to stand with you because it mattered. Change always comes at a cost, but it's worth paying. If we backed down every time things got tough, nothing would ever improve." Elijah exhaled deeply, absorbing Marcus's unwavering courage. "But how do we move forward now? Alexandria still feels divided." Marcus reached for Elijah's hand firmly. "You start by leading, openly, fearlessly. Show everyone that hatred failed, that we're stronger now. Unite them with your vision. Let them see the Alexandria we've always believed in." Elijah nodded solemnly, profoundly moved. "I promise you, Marcus, I won't let your sacrifice go to waste." Returning to school, Elijah immediately stepped into his new role as student council president, despite persistent threats that security continued diligently investigating. Elijah, however, refused to live governed by fear. He worked tirelessly, actively engaging students, teachers, and parents alike, seeking common ground and emphasizing reconciliation and unity built upon truth. One morning, Elijah boldly called for a community-wide gathering at Westbrook High, inviting everyone, students, families, community leaders, even those who previously opposed him fiercely. Hundreds responded eagerly, filling the auditorium to capacity, anticipation heavy in the air. Stepping confidently onto the stage, Elijah faced the crowd calmly, voice steady and clear. "We've been through darkness together. Alexandria faced truths many wished hidden, truths of prejudice, injustice, and division. But we're not here today because of despair. We gather here because of hope." Marcus Harper paid dearly for our cause, proving how far hatred can push people, but also how powerful courage truly is. The auditorium listened intently, captivated fully by Elijah's sincerity. He continued passionately, voice resonating powerfully. "This moment isn't simply about ending division. It's about forging something new, a community built on mutual respect, equality, and honest dialogue. We can't erase past wounds easily, but we can commit to healing them together, openly acknowledging our failures and pledging genuine change." His words resonated profoundly, sparking spontaneous applause that quickly spread powerfully throughout the auditorium. Principal Harmon rose solemnly afterward, joining Elijah confidently. Elijah's bravery challenged all of us to confront uncomfortable realities. Let's heed his call, united not by ignoring problems, but by honestly addressing them together. Angela Foster, visibly moved, also spoke passionately, advocating healing and unity, encouraging everyone to embrace Elijah's message fully. Jared, Emma, Chloe, Nate, and Julia took the stage, standing proudly beside Elijah, symbolizing visibly the community's newfound solidarity and determination. Following the assembly, significant changes emerged rapidly. Elijah organized student dialogues, openly discussing race, prejudice, privilege, and unity, creating spaces for honest conversations previously impossible. Students actively participated, confronting biases openly, challenging long-held assumptions courageously. Principal Harmon, inspired profoundly, implemented sweeping administrative reforms promoting inclusion, diversity, and equal representation within school policies. Alexandria's city council similarly faced intense community pressure, adopting comprehensive reforms emphasizing transparency, accountability, and equality, dismantling remnants of Prescott's legacy permanently. Marcus's recovery became a rallying symbol throughout Alexandria, representing resilience, sacrifice, and hope itself. Upon finally returning to Westbrook weeks later, Marcus was greeted jubilantly, hundreds of students applauding emotionally, acknowledging openly the price he'd willingly paid for their collective growth. In private, Marcus shared quietly with Elijah the deep pride he felt watching their community evolve. "We made real change, Eli. Change worth fighting for. It wasn't easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is." Months passed steadily, Alexandria gradually healing through determined effort, honest reflection, and unwavering commitment. Elijah, profoundly humbled by everything they endured, continued leading Westbrook courageously, never retreating from uncomfortable truths, continually advocating justice openly. As graduation approached that spring, Elijah reflected deeply on their journey. Standing before the senior class as valedictorian, Elijah's voice carried powerful sincerity. "We faced hatred and division together, and emerged stronger, united through courage, sacrifice, and unyielding hope. Our fight taught us clearly. Justice demands courage, unity demands honesty, and true change demands sacrifice. Never forget these lessons, because our community and world desperately needs leaders who remember." Applause erupted passionately, students standing spontaneously, moved deeply by Elijah's powerful words. Marcus, fully recovered and preparing proudly for college, embraced Elijah tightly afterward, voice thick with emotion. "You inspired everyone, Eli. You showed what real courage means." Julia, smiling tearfully, joined warmly. "You made us stronger together. Never forget the difference you made." As Elijah stood quietly, overwhelmed emotionally, his parents approached proudly, embracing him lovingly. Catherine whispered gently, voice thick with pride. "We're so proud of you, Elijah. You changed Alexandria forever." Terence nodded solemnly, adding thoughtfully, "You showed everyone courage matters most when things feel impossible." That night, alone at home, Elijah reflected deeply. He'd started simply wanting fairness in a school election, never imagining the magnitude their struggle would ultimately reach. Yet through courage, resilience, sacrifice, and unity, they transformed Alexandria permanently, confronting injustice bravely and reshaping their community profoundly. Despite everything endured, the threats, violence, and pain, Elijah Brooks felt profoundly grateful. Their fight revealed harsh truths, yes, but also remarkable courage, resilience, and unwavering hope. Elijah knew Alexandria's journey toward justice was far from complete, but he also knew definitively that meaningful change had begun irreversibly. In darkness, he'd found allies. Amid violence, strength emerged clearly. Their fight had never been easy, but Elijah understood profoundly it was necessary. Because justice always demands courage, and Alexandria now understood clearly exactly what courage required. Tomorrow held unknown challenges, certainly, but Elijah Brooks faced them unafraid, confident fully that, together, they'd proven decisively that hatred would never silence hope, courage, or justice itself. A new dawn had risen over Alexandria, one illuminated powerfully by truth, courage, and profound unity. Elijah Brooks knew, undeniably, their journey was just beginning, and he stood ready, determinedly prepared to embrace whatever came next.